Want to crush the Scandinavian defense fast? In this video, I'll show you the most effective way to punish early queen moves and gain a strong advantage right from the opening. The Scandinavian defense starts with pawn to e4, followed by pawn to d5, where black challenges white's central pawn right away. By exchanging pawns early in the center, black seeks a solid pawn structure and quick piece development. While this strategy has some risks, it provides black with active play and straightforward plans from the very beginning. White usually responds by developing the knight to c3, which attacks the queen and at the same time gains an important tempo for development. Black must then move the queen, most commonly retreating it to a 5 or d6, and in some variations all the way back to d8. This move to d8 represents the oldest and most traditional way of playing the Scandinavian defense. We will focus first on this classical queen retreat. After the queen returns to d8, white reinforces the center by advancing the pawn to d4. Black can now choose a more active setup by developing the knight to c6, immediately increasing pressure on white's central pawn. If white continues normal development with knight to f3, black can follow up with bishop to g4, pinning the knight to the queen and adding further pressure on the center, creating early tactical opportunities. For players who are unfamiliar with this line, black's pressure can feel uncomfortable and hard to meet accurately. Because of this, white often chooses a calm and solid option, such as developing the bishop to a 3, simply trying to stay safe and avoid early complications. While this looks reasonable, it gives black an easy game and allows the pressure to continue without resistance. There is, however, a much more dynamic and ambitious way for white to respond. By pushing the pawn to d5, white directly challenges black's central pieces and refuses to sit back defensively. Black usually answers with knight to e5, using the pin on white's knight and the fact that it has limited squares. At first glance, this move seems very strong and aggressive, increasing the tension in the position. In reality, it creates the perfect moment for white to turn the tables. White can strike immediately by playing knight takes a 5, cutting through black's pressure and seizing the initiative. What follows is even more dramatic. White willingly gives up the queen, a move that looks shocking at first sight. Black is essentially forced to accept the sacrifice as there are no practical alternatives. Once the queen is captured, white continues with bishop to b5 check, launching a direct attack on the black king and gaining strong compensation through activity and initiative. The check leaves black with only one realistic defensive option, which is to push the pawn to c6 in order to block the attack. White then captures on c6, and the game enters a highly unusual and sharp position. Even though it is now black's move and black is technically up a queen, the situation is extremely dangerous. The black king remains exposed, and black struggles to deal with the wave of threats that white is about to unleash. White's key concept is to create a discovered check with the bishop, leading to devastating tactical ideas. This can be carried out in two main ways. White can advance the pawn to c7, attacking the queen, or white can capture the pawn on b7, from where the pawn directly threatens the rook. In both scenarios, the pressure becomes unbearable. Black cannot stop both ideas at the same time, meaning white will not only regain the sacrifice material, but will usually come out with a clear material advantage. In the game we are examining, black tried a very imaginative and unexpected resource by playing bishop to a 2. At first glance, this move looks strange and even confusing, as it is not a typical choice in this position. The underlying idea, however, is quite clear. Black hopes to deflect white's bishop on b5, forcing it to move and attempting to reduce the intensity of white's attack. If white were to capture this bishop with the bishop, it would strongly favor black, because removing the bishop from b5 eliminates white's most dangerous attacking piece. For this reason, white must choose the response very carefully. An interesting alternative is capturing on e2 with the knight, but this leads to a different outcome. In that line, black can relieve the pressure by playing queen to a 5 check, immediately targeting the bishop on b5. After white blocks the check by developing the knight to c3, black gains the opportunity to castle kingside, stepping out of danger and bringing the king to safety. By doing this, black manages to escape many of white's immediate threats. This clearly shows that the move bishop to e2, which initially looks strange, actually has real defensive value. Rather than being pointless, it is a creative and resourceful idea that gives black practical chances to hold on. In the game we are studying, however, white found a much stronger continuation by capturing on e2 with the king. From that moment, black's position began to fall apart rapidly. Black tried one last practical attempt with pawn to a 6, aiming to challenge white's bishop. White then calmly pushed the pawn to c7, directly attacking the queen and renewing the decisive threats that black could no longer withstand. After the exchanges are completed, it becomes obvious that white has come out ahead with an extra minor piece and a completely winning position. This line demonstrates a very sharp idea from white and highlights a beautiful tactical sequence. It is a powerful opening trap to keep in mind and can be extremely effective when played from the white side. Let us now move on to trap number 2. The game starts with pawn to e4, answered by pawn to d5, entering the Scandinavian defense once again. In this line, black most often chooses to place the queen on a 5, putting pressure on white's center while allowing flexible piece development. White responds by developing the knight to f3, strengthening central control and preparing for smooth development. A common plan for black in this position is to develop the bishop to g4. Many players, especially at club level, like this move because it pins white's knight to the queen and creates early pressure. This can make the position feel uncomfortable and often provokes a passive reply. White, however, has a simple and effective way to deal with this idea by playing pawn to h3, forcing the bishop to retreat and removing the pin altogether. After a possible capture on f3, black often continues development by bringing the knight to c6. From this square, the knight is perfectly placed to jump into d4, where it can attack both white's queen and the pawn on c2 at the same time. This idea shows how black's natural-looking development moves can hide tactical dangers and create problems if white is not paying close attention. Black may also consider castling on the queen's side, which can lead to a very active and aggressive setup. If black successfully completes plans such as castling followed by knight to d4, the pressure can become serious and white may quickly find themselves under attack. For this reason, white must act energetically and take control before black's ideas come to life. A strong and practical response is to develop the bishop to b5, immediately putting pressure on black's knight. The knight now comes under a double attack from both the bishop and the queen, forcing black to find an accurate defense. In this position, black's most reliable option is to move the queen to b6, protecting the knight. But the battle does not end there. White now has access to a very elegant tactical continuation that takes advantage of black's piece placement and creates decisive threats. This line clearly shows how precise and aggressive play in the opening can completely turn the game in white's favor. White can now jump with the knight to d5, intentionally offering the bishop as a sacrifice to open the position for a winning tactical sequence. The key idea is simple but powerful. If black accepts the bishop, white follows up with knight takes c7, creating a deadly fork that attacks both the king and the queen at the same time. In most cases, this immediately gives white a decisive advantage. Black has very limited defensive options against this threat. For instance, if black tries to protect the pawn on c7 by playing queen to a5, white can calmly advance the pawn to b4. This move forces black to capture the bishop because the knight cannot capture the pawn due to being pinned. After the queen is chased away, white strikes with knight takes c7, delivering a powerful fork. At this point, black's position collapses and the game is completely white's favor. That's how you punish the Scandinavian defense with simple, powerful ideas. If you found this helpful, like the video, subscribe for more chess traps, and I'll see you in the next one.